What's going on? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, HazyRome. And as always, I'm joined by the Gotham Knight, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, DeepBoyce. And the league is here to talk about Star Wars, The Last Jedi, man. We got our first trailer, DeepBoyce.
Hype levels are over 9,000 right now.
Over 9,000, man. Tell them.
I mean, it's just every time we kept watching it and watching it and watching, then we got together to talk about it and we were analyzing things left and right. Man, it was tickling that nerd funny bone. I was feeling good.
That nerd funny bone, man. I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good, man. It was good, man. I mean, let's jump right into it, man. Where are we going to start with this? Like, there's so much to say. We could start at the beginning of the trailer, or we could start at the juiciest bit of the trailer, which is Luke Skywalker's declaration at the end of the trailer. I think that's where we should start.
Yeah, let's start with the juice. The juiciest part.
So, Luke Skywalker, he ends this 2-minute trailer by saying, I only know one truth. It's time for the Jedi to end. Bong bong, as DeepBoyce said. Bong bong.
Bong.
What does that mean, man? What does that mean, boys? Like, what is, like, I know every single Star Wars fan, you know, when they heard that, they were like, like,
they gasped.
It was that, it was like when, in old times, when someone would challenge someone to a duel in public and be like, pop, pop, you know, you get the smack with the glove, and everybody's just watching like, yo, he smacked him in the face with the glove. It was like that. Like, I was like, yo. But, DeepBoyce, we shouldn't be surprised, man. Because the two of us had a video previously, which we'll hopefully link in the description of this video and annotate in this video.
Yeah.
Where we talked about what The Last Jedi means.
Yeah, because a lot of people were talking about, oh, does this mean that Luke is going to die? That means he's the last Jedi?
Even we thought about it.
We postulated, to use a SAT word. But we also brought up to the fact that maybe it's not necessarily a physical death, but maybe a metaphorical death. Maybe the last Jedi as in the end of the Jedi Order. And we're going to start anew and do something else.
Indeed. And I think there's evidence to back that up. And in order to back that up, we're going to back that up to earlier in the trailer with Rey and some of the things she's saying. So earlier on in the trailer, you have Rey and Luke. Essentially, I think he's training her, right?
Yeah.
So he's talking to her and he's telling her, breathe, just breathe. And then he says, now reach out. What do you see? So right when that happens, like, you basically hear, there's some inaudible speech. If you turn up the volume extremely loud on the trailer, there's some inaudible speech at different places in the trailer during the sequence that I'm describing. So one of the things, I mean, the thing that you can hear the loudest is Rey saying light, then she pauses, and darkness, and then she says the balance. And Luke says so much bigger. Okay, so you're like, what the hell does that mean? What the hell? You're hearing light, dark. I mean, for most people, you're like, okay, light side, Jedi, dark side, Sith, or whatever dark side, organization is in power.
Yeah.
And the balance is obviously, trying to find balance between the two. Basically, not falling to the dark side. That's what most people think. That's what balance means. But in tying into what Luke's saying about The Last Jedi, and if you're looking at the poster for The Last Jedi, which has Rey kind of standing with this light, jutting out from her hand straight up, and it's splitting an image of Luke Skywalker and Kylo Ren representing the light and the dark. Essentially, Luke is alluding to a place in between that rides the line of being, not a Jedi, not a dark side user, but just someone in the middle, a balance.
Yes. Or
a
gray Jedi, as people have said before.
Right.
We still don't know if that's canon or not. We'll see as we go along with some of these movies. But something we mentioned in our earlier video was the fact that the Jedi have been around for so long, and it doesn't seem like they ever work. There's a period of I guess progress for the Jedi. There's a lot of them, and they're sort of maintaining peace, but it always comes it always ends disastrous.
Sure.
For not just the Jedi, but for the universe at large. It's almost that Batman dynamic, right? Where Batman is seen as, a hero. He's seen as something that's good for Gotham. But at the same time, some people see him as a problem because as a greater good gets balanced out by an even greater evil. Maybe if Batman were never there, maybe if the Jedi were never there, then all of this stuff wouldn't be happening. There wouldn't be this rise of the Sith that would be disastrous, and they would commit genocide, destroy planets, subjugate people, and all that kind of stuff. So, and also, there's also the philosophy of the Jedi that there's, they're monks essentially, they're like warrior monks, and maybe venturing too far into that direction is also wrong in and of itself, because there have been instances where the Jedi maybe needed to intervene,
right?
And because they felt, it's we can't give into our base emotions. We have to stay calm within our rules. Meanwhile, the Sith are out there, and evil people are doing evil things because the Jedi are too focused on not succumbing to their emotions because they feel that will make them fall into the dark side of the Force. You know what I mean? And maybe Luke is alluding to the fact that maybe there's a balance here. Maybe the balance that they foretold wasn't a person necessarily, but maybe it's an idea. It's a new way of redefining the Sith and the Jedi, and a new
ideology, a new practice.
Yeah, and you can kind of see it with some of the characters here. I think these are out of all Star Wars movies, these characters are the most ambiguous. Rey, Finn, and Kylo Ren. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them kind of fall in any spectrum at towards the end of all of this.
I mean, just to extrapolate some of the things that you're saying there, and to kind of elaborate on some of the points. Yeah. If you look at the prequel movies, right, the Jedi, and they definitely don't hesitate to say this, the Jedi, they have these inadequacies. Yeah. They're a little bit too arrogant. And Anakin even points out that there's even some hypocrisy in some of the things they say. Now you just think, oh, Anakin, you know the ways of the Jedi. Stop playing. Yeah. But it's like no, he brings up some valid points. Like there's a part where he says, you tell us that we're not supposed to have attachments, but then you also tell us that Jedi are supposed to love things. I love Padme. What's wrong with that? Yeah. And I think it brings up a larger moral issue where it's sometimes not great to be too much on one side of one thing and to find that middle ground, that balance. Yeah. And the Jedi, in their failings, because let's be honest, they failed at the end of the prequels.
I mean, it seems galaxy they failed at the end of the prequels. They and they kind of failed after the original movies because the whole Knights of Ren thing, and it seems like, as you can see in the trailer, Luke is alongside R2-D2. There's the White House on flames.
The White House.
It's out in the distance. I don't know.
Probably if that's the new Jedi Temple, if I had to guess.
I don't know if that's foreboding to current events. I don't want to touch on that. I don't want to go there. But clearly something happened where he was training some Jedi and they got murked. They just got destroyed, and he failed again.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the idea here is that when the Jedi fail, the galaxy seems to suffer as a result. And you kind of see it in the movies where essentially the main conflict. Yes, there's a huge conflict between the rebels and the Empire, but the main conflict, the central conflict, is that of a dark side user, aka Palpatine, warranting some checks and balances, and Luke saying, all right, we need to stop this. We need to stop him. We need to stop Vader. And there's a battle between light and dark. And the galaxy hangs in the balance as a result of this ongoing war. I mean, so Luke is like, maybe we need to stop this. Not necessarily stop the war, but maybe there is a middle ground that you can ride where you're not, following the path of a Jedi and allowing yourself to kind of see only one way of thinking, and potentially, have the galaxy be at risk as a result of it. And because let's be honest, with his new Jedi Order having failed, Kylo and the Knights of Ren took out his whole squad, his whole team. Yeah. Essentially, what happens is the galaxy is open, and the First Order comes right in and starts doing their thing with Supreme Leader Snoke.
And we could take this even farther again into the realm of speculation. Who knows how this will play out? But oddly enough, it always seems like the Sith and the Jedi fight. It never seems like it's almost contradictory that the Jedi are there for peace and they want to find goodness, the light side of the Force. But when have they ever tried to sit down, both sides, the Sith and the Jedi, to talk things out and to maybe find that balance?
That's where it comes. That's where the idea of balance comes from, and that's a perfect point. Now, to bring it back to those periods of inaudible speech in between what you hear Rey and Luke clearly saying. Okay, so me and Boyce, we were in the mode, man. We were trying to dissect this trailer, and we put our headphones on and we listened to the trailer. And in the trailer, in between certain lines, right? So when you hear Luke say, "Now reach out, what do you see?" You actually hear what we believe to be Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan." And right after that, Leia pops up, General Leia. In quote unquote present day, even though it's not present day because it's galaxy, far, far away, long time ago. You know this feel. After that, Rey says, "Light." Then you hear Darth Vader breathing, and I think you see the mask, like the shattered mask. Pretty sure that's Vader's mask on the ground. And then you also hear the breathing clearly, but if you listen carefully, you hear "seduced by the dark side." And then Rey says, "and darkness." After that, there's some inaudible speech that me and Boyce are aggravated that we could not dissect. Because we can't figure out what it is. But the second part of this speech, we think it's someone saying the future, particularly Yoda. And then Rey says, "the balance." And Luke says, "so much bigger." So it's obvious that, Luke is talking about, yes, the Jedi Order needs to end, but there is the future, and the future is this balance. And Rey, seeing this vision of light and dark, the balance between, she is essentially part of that future. Now, you may be wondering, does Luke die? Does that mean he's the last Jedi? Does that mean he doesn't exist anymore? Not necessarily, because you remember, Luke's training has been highly unorthodox. Luke hasn't really trained that much as a Jedi in the movies that we've seen. Obviously, he's done some training in between, but Luke has been, the reason why he supposedly exiled himself was because he wanted to check out other Jedi temples, find the origins of the Jedi and kind of, find some answers for himself, especially after his whole squad got murked. So I think with Luke has a different perspective because Luke wasn't trained like the other Jedi. He sees things from a different point of view. So I think, yes, maybe he is the last Jedi. That doesn't necessarily mean he meets his end. Maybe he's the last Jedi, but the beginning of something new. Rey's the future, but he's still here to usher in this future. So I'm not sure he's gonna die there in this trilogy. I hope not. I think Mark Hamill is a freaking gem. You know what I'm saying? If I could have a spirit animal, it would be him. I hope they don't kill him in the movies. But I think there is a future for Luke in that respect.
We lost Han Solo, the character, and we unfortunately lost Carrie Fisher, the human being. Rest in peace.
Yes.
So I think, I don't know. Personally, I think it just makes sense to kind of keep Mark Hamill around for as long as he's willing to be there. I don't think they necessarily need to kill him in the movies, the Luke Skywalker character. Only if it serves like a really good purpose, in my opinion. But back to what you were saying, because again, this is like the major thing that we were focusing on right there in the middle of the teaser. And going back to this theme that things that have been done before haven't exactly worked. I think it's intentional how they kind of cycle through. First, they show General Leia, and she was a good character and is a good character. But ultimately, where is she right now within the movies? In another struggle, probably even worse than she was before. So did this path of the Jedi of the light of that Obi-Wan embarked on and implicated both Luke and Leia, did this really pan out? Did this work? Then after that we get Darth Vader and that speaks for itself. I mean,
Sure.
that didn't exactly work out either. And then obviously the last of it is Yoda, who kind of gave the final seal or the stamp of approval of the old order to Luke. Kind of gave him his blessing, so to speak, to go and play his role in this whole saga, right? And then
to reestablish the Jedi, to pass on what you have learned.
And I think that's intentional there, because now that mantle of Yoda, of putting the final stamp of approval, is now Luke's role, where he's going to define this next saga of the Jedi.
Generation.
Yeah, and in his mind is, I've seen what's happened with my father, didn't work. My father and Obi-Wan. Then I saw what they tried to pass on to me, and it ultimately didn't work. Look where we are right now. So I'm going to try and teach you, Rey. We're going to try something different. We're going to take a different path, and hopefully, maybe finally end this conflict. Because you kind of mentioned it earlier, how Luke's training was unorthodox. Not just because he was old for a Jedi, but really he didn't exactly have a say in this. Like it was kind of just like he was just kind of thrown into it. It was almost like, he had to learn. Like that's why he went into exile, I think. He had to really learn a lot more what was going on, because as soon as he got off of Tatooine, it was just nonstop. And it was almost like he was indoctrinated in a sense. I mean, he was on the good side, but he could have just.
I mean, he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
It's just that because he did want to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is that he had these ideas of what a Jedi is instilled in him because of his youthful nature and his craving for adventure, his craving to take down the Empire. Mm-hmm. When Obi-Wan says, "Yo, your dad was a Jedi," he's like, maybe I'm meant to fight this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And as opposed to, I'm not saying that, like you said, he was indoctrinated. I don't want to go that far, because I do feel like Luke definitely chose what he wanted to do.
Definitely in a sense, but he wasn't told. They didn't tell him the whole truth. Like there are certain aspects of it that, and any one of us would have looked back and said, okay, they did that. I didn't like that, but I saw why they did it for good reasons. Like they didn't tell him. They told him, yeah, your father was a Jedi, but about that, he's currently helping destroy the galaxy. He killed all the Jedi. There were certain things like it was what's the phrase? Lying via omission, I guess.
Yeah, lying via. I mean, Obi-Wan straight out lied.
Yeah,
like he was like, "Yo, your dad." He's like, "Yo, your dad was killed by Darth Vader." Then Luke questioned. He called him out on that, and Obi-Wan was like, "Yo, it was true from a certain point of view." And Luke was like, "Come on, dog."
Because
he's like, "From a certain point of view, man. Come on, man."
Because I think we kind of have to take our bias out of it for a second if we really look at things. Because Anakin kind of went through the same thing, where this crypticness, this need to, this is just the way you'll learn in time, isn't always the best thing.
Sure.
Isn't always.
He never answered his questions the way he needed his questions to be answered.
Sometimes
he fell to the dark side as a result.
Yeah,
you're right.
Sometimes they need to kind of just acknowledge the truth. Like, sure. maybe instead of being so cryptic, maybe Padme wouldn't have died. Maybe they could have changed the way things worked out. And that maybe, now that I'm thinking about it right now, that's definitely something that could have crossed through Anakin's mind, where he was just so fed up with it. He's like, look how bad things have gotten. If you guys would have just done something differently, we couldn't have been in this mess. You know what I mean?
Sure. That's not to excuse Anakin, because he's a scumbag. Your man was killing kids. Like he just went up into the temple and he was like, "Yo, I'm killing children."
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But no, I think you raise a good point, and I think Luke has recognized that. I think that's why Luke is taking this path with Rey. Mm-hmm. Now, you also might be wondering, like, oh, okay, so this movie, The Last Jedi, continues right where The Force Awakens left off, where Rey is handing the lightsaber to Luke, and Luke is just standing there like, damn, you came all the way here for this? And The Last Jedi basically picks up from there. It's the first movie in the Star Wars franchise to pick up right after the end of a previous movie. Mm-hmm. So you might be thinking, oh, okay, so Luke meets Rey, and he's like, okay, you must be a Force wielder. Let's get to work. Mm-hmm. Let's find this balance. But during so right now, at the time of recording, Star Wars Celebration is going on, and there was a panel for The Last Jedi in which the trailer was released. Mm-hmm. Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey, she was talking about her relationship with Luke, and she specifically said that sometimes your heroes aren't what you thought they would be. And I think the impression I got from that was that Rey thinks she's gonna just learn how to use everything she's learned at the end of the Force Awakens. But I think initially Luke's not gonna want to train her, and I think that it's gonna take some convincing, and I think ultimately she's gonna be like, train me to be a Jedi like you are, because Luke is this myth. He's like this great hero in the sequel trilogy, and I think she's gonna think, well, I have these powers. Teach me, show me how to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna be like, no, the Jedi are gone. And that end scene that you see in the trailer with him stepping out of this cave, I don't know if he's saying that line while he's stepping out of the cave. It might just be fancy editing. But I think the idea is, he's stepping out of this darkness back into this light, this hope. Not to say that he's stepping back into being a Jedi who's teaching a Padawan, but he's stepping into the future and this new way of teaching. And I think whatever struggle they go through, I think Rey ultimately is going to become his student, his apprentice in this new way. Not because she comes, to Act 2, that's the little water island that he's on, saying, train me as a Jedi, but because he's like, this new way, this balance, I can see that you see. There's something in you that I know you have, that you see that there's two sides to something, and you can potentially be that balance. So, I mean, there's so many theories that have been out about Rey's origins.
Yeah.
One such theory is that she's like the Force reincarnate.
Yeah.
So there was this theory that's kind of made the rounds where essentially Rey, they're saying that every so often the Force reincarnates itself in the form of a human being. So Darth Vader was just one such incarnation.
Yeah.
And now Rey is this incarnation. So there was this rumor that there's a scene where she asks Luke if he's her father.
Yeah.
And Luke goes, no, I'm not your father, but you're my father. And she's like, what? It's supposed to the rumor is it turns that whole Empire Strikes Back thing on its head, where, Luke is not going to say, oh yeah, I am your father. Instead, she's his father in the sense that she's the reincarnation of the Force or Vader.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's going to come into play, but that's a possibility. For who Rey is. And I wanted to put that out there because we're talking about this idea of balance.
Yeah.
And this reincarnation of the Force and this whole idea of the Force reincarnating itself into a human being is this idea that every time the universe or galaxy needs balance, the Force somehow steps in to intervene.
Yeah.
and to form that balance. So essentially with Vader, they failed because Vader fell to the dark side. He didn't form that balance. And falling into, going into the larger picture of this balance between the Jedi and the dark side, maybe Luke sees Rey and he's like, hey, I can see that you're the Force incarnate. We messed up with you last time. Let's figure this out now differently. Because if you look at it, Anakin and Vader, they played both sides.
Yeah.
They didn't find a balance. He played the light side. He went to the full dark side, but he never quite, sat comfortably with either. Because at the end of Return of the Jedi, he's like, quote unquote, back to the light.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't, just because Luke saved his son, just because Anakin saved his son, doesn't mean, from the Emperor, doesn't mean that he's all good and fine and dandy now. He killed mad people.
Yeah.
So maybe there is something to say for that idea of balance.
Yeah.
And, just to draw back to that poster that's been released of The Last Jedi, and I'm sure we're going to have that in the vid. If you compare that with the poster from A New Hope, you see, Luke kind of doing the same pose that Rey's doing in that poster. Luke's kind of splitting this image of Darth Vader in half, where he's kind of like piercing the darkness of this looming Darth Vader character, this prevalent, menacing figure who represents the dark side. Conversely, in this new poster, you see Rey, splitting this beam of light in between Luke and Kylo, light and dark.
Yeah.
And it's almost making it's a little bit of space in between the two, talking about this balance, if you will, this idea that there's something so much bigger. There's a space, a line that's so much bigger than we thought. that, Luke says so much bigger. Maybe that's what that means. And you pointed out, while we were talking about the poster, that the light that, is emanating from Rey is both blue, like the Jedi lightsabers, and the tip of it is red.
Yeah.
Like the Sith.
Yeah.
So, further, implying that Rey is supposed to represent this balance and not become a Jedi, and maybe become this gray Jedi that we've spoken of. I mean, you know better what a gray Jedi is, so I don't know if you want to explain maybe what it is so people kind of know what we're referring to when we say it.
Yeah, I mean, a great Jedi, I guess the best way, the real world example, or at least historical example of a great Jedi is like a Ronin. So it's like a samurai that has no master. So in the sense that a Jedi who isn't not only not part of the Order, but succumbs to some of those feelings that typically will take you to the dark side of the Force. But they're also not a Sith, and they're not, twisted and evil because they've given in to the their base feelings. So maybe a dark Jedi is someone that, decided, just fell out of favor with the Jedi and just went off and just started a family, but was still a Jedi. Or maybe a great Jedi could be, like some sort of bounty hunter or mercenary or something.
Sure.
Not entirely an evil character, but a potential threat. I guess that's something that sometimes the Jedi, that's how they see even themselves. They're always like a potential threat, because at any point you can succumb to the dark side of the Force and become evil and potentially destroy or kill people and whatnot.
Right. And because they've had this fear of falling to the dark side, they've completely cut themselves off from even anything that can lead to the potential of falling to the dark side, including having a relationship.
Yes.
And I think this idea of balance opens up the idea that, hey, maybe you can have a wife and be okay. Maybe you can, and like you said about Anakin, Anakin had an attachment, and yes, it did in fact lead to him turning to the dark side, but it wasn't entirely his fault, like you said.
Yeah. There
There were other factors where he wasn't, entirely heard out. And when he spoke out about these things, it was kind of like, don't question what the Order is. Don't question what we are.
Yeah, there wasn't exactly sympathy there, especially when his master, Obi-Wan, he had his own things going on as well.
Sure.
It just kind of circumstance played out a certain way. And he was more responsible. But he did have someone that he was sort of into, which they sort of, I guess they only really introduced her in the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah, Satine, Duchess Satine, a Mandalorian,
and I always, this is something that I will never forget, because I always thought it was interesting, even when I first saw it when I was a kid. But in the Phantom Menace, when Qui-Gon dies,
yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. The Obi-Wan scream, the anger.
Obi-Wan was pissed off. Like he was not pissed. Calm and composed when that was going on. So
yeah,
and I don't know, they seem to never really even mention that, but I still think that that's rather important.
Sure, and I think that one might even argue that he may have tapped in. I don't think he necessarily sought vengeance per se, but I think he sought justice personally, and I think that personal motivation, it was a little bit more than, hey, I'm doing this for the greater good. And it's like, yo, I want to avenge my master.
And another interesting connection. Obi-Wan's master, Qui-Gon Jinn, was the person that found Anakin. And Qui-Gon Jinn was not seen very well. Like, people weren't too crazy about Qui-Gon Jinn because he was rather unorthodox with his way of being a Jedi. And how he would teach and some of the philosophies he had. He would ride that line really closely. I mean, ultimately, he is a Jedi. He was a Jedi master, ultimately, even though he wasn't christened. He wasn't christened for that very reason, because they felt that he wasn't, a true Jedi. He was actually always...
That's the reason why he wasn't on the council.
Yeah. And I guess he didn't disappear, because when you're a Jedi master, according to lore, you, disappear, like Obi-Wan did when he was killed. And Qui-Gon did not disappear, right? He just died.
Yeah, so Qui-Gon just died.
Yeah.
Then in Revenge of the Sith, when Yoda and Obi-Wan are going into exile, Yoda says that he's been in touch with an old friend.
Yeah.
And Yoda alludes to the fact that that Obi-Wan is going to learn from Yoda how to connect with this old friend. The old friend being Qui-Gon Jinn. They actually say Qui-Gon Jinn, because that's Obi-Wan's master. And Obi-Wan's like, what? Like, what? He talked to you? Like, you're not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yoda's like, yo, you got some things to learn, and yo, it's gonna help you out when A New Hope happens, man, because you're not gonna die.
So I guess,
and
yeah, go ahead.
No, what I wanted to say was that the result of Obi-Wan learning to, you know, make peace with himself and transcend to that level where he could talk to Luke as a Force ghost. He learned that from Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah.
And in the Clone Wars, they expound on that a little bit, where, you know, Yoda first makes contact with Qui-Gon Jinn actually on Dagobah, and you know, Qui-Gon Jinn is speaking to Obi-Wan, or to Yoda rather, but he's not able to manifest his body because he never finished learning that technique before Maul cut him down. Yeah. So Qui-Gon Jinn was able to learn that actually by not staying true to the ways of the Jedi per se. I'm not saying that, you know, he turned to the dark side, but he essentially explored a gray area or a balance in between that he was not supposed to be seeking out in order for him to find out that knowledge of essentially immortality. That's essentially what it is, because the Jedi believed when you die, you became one with the Force. But the idea of maintaining your individuality, that's something that the Jedi were like, yo, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And fundamentally speaking, a Jedi would probably be even against that ideology, you know, if you were to propose it, as opposed to them straight up seeing it from Qui-Gon, because it's like, yo, that's blasphemy. You're supposed to be one with the Force.
Don't come to Mace Windu with that kind of stuff. He's not having it.
I mean, the idea there being, you know, Qui-Gon first established this idea of maybe there's more than we're seeing here.
Yes.
Maybe we need to open ourselves up to more than our teachings, more than our books and our rituals.
Yep.
And you know, it's an interesting area to explore. And you know, I was talking with somebody in our Discord server about maybe the future this holds. Like maybe in a future, you know, era of movies, maybe a new order of Jedi are established, and they're the enemy. They're like these religious purists who believe in the purification of the Jedi.
True.
And you know, they look at this idea of balance as sacrilegious. Maybe that would turn these movies completely on their heads if, you know, you're essentially fighting a Jedi instead of someone who's on the dark side. That could set up for future movies in this franchise, man. I don't know, but I'm excited for it, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of questions there, and there are a lot of open threads that, from things that people kind of scoffed at for years. Yeah. And now when we're kind of coming full circle and we're looking at it, you know, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan's outburst, Anakin, the hesitant, you know, the failure of the Jedi Order. There's a lot of ambiguity there and a lot of interesting stuff that, I mean, hopefully maybe, you know, Disney decides to kind of delve into that, because, I mean, you know, again, Qui-Gon being a great Jedi, another mark against him from the Jedi was Qui-Gon's Jedi Master, which was Count Dooku. And we all know Count Dooku
fell to the dark side.
So there's a lot of interesting connections there. But yeah, go ahead.
And no, I was gonna say, in this trend towards this idea of the balance, this place in between the dark and the light side, when you look at those little things, it feels organic. Yeah. It feels natural. Yeah. And I think it's cool. Yeah. But what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, I mean, we basically focused on like 10 seconds of the trailer. There were a few other things that I don't know, maybe if you want to talk about real quick.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's see. We saw your boy Finn, and he looked like he was in a Hurt Locker or something. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah. He was cosplaying as Bayomax from Big Hero 6, man. He was in this suit. Now, I want to actually talk about that for a quick second. Yeah. So there are more rumors that were coming out way before the Last Jedi trailer dropped, was that Finn would be in a Bacta suit, right? So a Bacta tank is essentially this, healing tank. If you're not familiar with Star Wars, think of Dragon Ball Z Vegeta when he's healing on the one of the planets. He's kind of in this tank where he's essentially able to heal a lot quicker. Luke is actually in this tank after Han finds him on Hoth, on the frozen planet. He got attacked by that Yeti thingy. And he's in the back the tank, and he's healing up. So essentially, this suit that Finn is wearing is supposed to be basically a advanced version of the Bacta tank. So instead of a Bacta tank, it's a Bacta suit. So that's what he's in. I don't know if they're gonna call it that, but there were rumors that Finn would be in this bacta suit, because if you remember, Kylo Ren sliced his back up, man, just straight up cut his spine up at the end of The Force Awakens. So Finn, given that The Last Jedi is continuing from that movie, is still healing at the beginning of The Last Jedi.
True. You know, like we said, all we can really note from that is the fact that he's in the back of the tank because he was hurt. There's still like some sort of blue outline or something. Who knows if that's a room or if he got launched into the atmosphere. Like, we don't know what's going on. we don't know. We'll have to see a little bit more. Something else that was interesting. You noted the fights, the dog fights out in space.
Yes. So the battle that's taking place in space, between, you can see some TIE fighters there, some X-Wings, and some Resistance ships. So if you look at the Resistance ships, I think I see this. I don't know if I'm just imagining things, but I think the ships look a little shabby, and I think that's intentional. The Resistance ships, because the Resistance ships are actually ships that General Leia kind of scrounged together to fight the First Order. So they didn't really explain this in The Force Awakens, but the reason why they refer to the group that's fighting the First Order as the Resistance is because General Leia, she was formerly part of the New Republic. So the Hosnian system that got destroyed by Starkiller Base, that's where the New Republic was headquartered. So Leia was formerly part of the Senate there, and essentially after the Battle of Jakku, that was the last battle between the Empire and the Rebellion. The New Republic signed an armistice with the remains of the Empire, saying, if you just take your ships and your bum asses to this edge of space, leave us alone, don't do anything crazy, as long as you follow these guidelines we've set out for you, we'll be good money. And Leia was like, no, you need to not do that. You need to like destroy them completely, and we need to keep them in check. But the New Republic, they were like, enough with the violence already. We've been fighting this war, enough. Now, Leia, knowing about this and foreseeing essentially the rise of what the First Order would later become, she tries to stand up to the New Republic and, as a senator, essentially form, a military force to essentially continue seeking out the remains of the Empire. Now, she's discredited in the New Republic because they find out that she's the daughter of Darth Vader, and she concealed that. Now, this is all detailed in some fully canon novels called Lost Stars and Bloodline. So if you want to,
this is news to me.
Yeah, if you want to check that out, Lost Stars and Bloodline, they detail some of the things that I'm talking about here. So she was discredited in the Senate because they're like, yo, you were Vader's daughter and you ain't say nothing? That's crazy. So they of course, they feared the rise of one person becoming too strong of a voice, a la Palpatine and what he did. So they were like, Leia, we can't rock. So Leia's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm leaving. So the way she forms the Resistance is she actually takes old rebel ships to, reform this resistance, this force to fight the First Order. Now, the interesting thing about that is these ships are like 30 years old at least, because Return of the Jedi was like the last time we saw those ships. So they're like really old. So the Resistance ships are actually like hand-me-downs essentially that they're using to fight, these pristine, high-tech First Order vehicles and equipment. So it's just an interesting little detail there, just about the backstory. And maybe I hope they do talk about that in this movie, just to give Leia some more of a backstory for where she is right now.
No doubt.
So another scene I wanted to point out was a scene where you see, as Boyce pointed out earlier, the White House burning. I think that's the new Jedi Temple, and I think we're going to see more details about what happened to the new Jedi Order that Luke was forming. And I think we're going to get to see, hopefully, the Knights of Ren, slicing and dicing and taking out what would have been the new Jedi Order. Now, instantly, it cuts to a scene where you see, if you look closer, you'd have to kind of like break down the trailer, but you see a scene where it's Captain Phasma leading some stormtroopers, which may make you think, was Captain Phasma and the stormtroopers there when the new Jedi Temple was destroyed? Me and Boyce, and looking at it closely, we actually don't think so. We think it's just very good editing, where they cut the scene where Luke is looking out at the burning temple, and they cut to a different scene with stormtroopers and Captain Phasma leading this charge toward this area with debris. We think the landscape is a little different, so it's just meant to make you think that, but I think it actually is two different scenes. So I think we are going to straight up see the Knights of Ren, and maybe Captain Phasma is there. I don't know, but I think we are going to see the Knights of Ren, handle their business.
Absolutely.
So that would be something really cool.
Yeah.
But just to end things off,
we also saw, I guess, what looks like the Resistance base again, blown up, and you see Poe Dameron kind of running in distress. I guess maybe it's also clever editing. We don't know. I mean, he's running towards his ship, his X-wing. It gets blown up. We don't know if it's his. We don't know what's going on. Before that, it cuts from him running through a hallway. We don't know. There's not enough information, but it seems the First Order strikes back.
I mean, that's a good point you make to kind of cap things off. Cap off this talk, man. It seems like this is like almost a homage to The Empire Strikes Back in the sense that the dark side is gonna have its day. Yeah. I mean, we talked about that when the image for The Last Jedi was first released, that first logo image with the Star Wars logo now being red instead of yellow. Mm-hmm. And, we talked about the ominous nature of The Last Jedi. Yeah. And, you even see, how can we forget? You see Kylo Ren in this trailer, too, lighting up his lightsaber. You don't see too much of him, but he don't look happy. I'll tell you that much. Your man looks troubled.
Moody as ever.
Moody as ever. So I think that the dark side is going to have its day. And I think, honestly, you need that. You need that because the heroes need something to overcome. Mm-hmm. So just one last thing I wanted to say. This is from that Star Wars panel where the trailer was first dropped. Mm-hmm. Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill, might as well be Luke Skywalker. Was talking about the Luke Skywalker character and whether or not we're going to get, a lot of details about, the time gap that takes place that's passed between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy. And he said that, when Luke is pretty much still a mysterious character and we might not get as much as we want about Luke. Mm-hmm. I'm just paraphrasing here. And essentially he said that I'm sure his story is going to be told in like comics, TV shows, or what have you. So just to put that out there, I don't think we're going to, we may not get all the answers we want about what Luke's been up to. He didn't confirm anything in terms of that extra material I was talking about, but I mean, we have talked about it before, man. That would be a wonderful time period to explore, man. That 30 years in between, Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. I would love to see an animated series based on that.
I agree.
Rebels is in season 4, starting season 4 next year. It might be time, brother. I'm just saying. I love Rebels, but I need to see. Wouldn't it be fantastic just to see the characters from the original trilogy in animated form? That would be awesome, man. Leia, Han, Luke, Lando. Where Lando at? Where you at, though? I need to see some Lando in this trilogy.
We're getting childish Lando next year. Yeah.
Childish Lambino, aka Childish Gambino playing young Lando. So we're gonna be seeing that in the Han Solo solo flick. But anyway, DeepBoyce, man, any final words, man, to end off this conversation, cap things off?
Whoever does the soundtrack to these trailers, God bless you. May the Force be with you.
Man, I'm pretty sure the name of the composer for like the Star Wars movies is John Williams. He's a beast. Yeah. The only Star Wars movie he didn't actually compose was Rogue One. That also had a great soundtrack too. I think that might have been, I want to say Gareth Edwards. I don't remember, but
I think Gareth Edwards was the director. Maybe
he was the director. You're right, but yeah, fantastic. The soundtrack to this trailer was fantastic. Oh my gosh, like it gave me goosebumps watching this. I am completely sold on The Last Jedi. Not that I wasn't before, but I mean,
it's time.
I mean, just think years ago, this wasn't even supposed to be happening. We didn't think we'd ever get a Star Wars movie. And not only be getting Star Wars movies, but they seem to be good movies. Like, really good movies. Not to cut on the prequels. Yeah. But they seem like they're going to be really good. And, I mean, 100% down with this. If you liked anything you heard in this conversation. If you have anything to comment on, and you should, because if you listen to this video, there's some freaking great stuff that I think you guys will be totally down to talk about. We're down to talk about. Go ahead and hit us up, man. Hit us with a like and subscribe. DeepBoyce, hit us with the drops, because we got a new drop that we want to put out there for you guys in the Twitterverse.
Yes. Very important. We just made a Spectacular Spoiler League Twitter account. It is at Hall of Spoilers. So that's HALLOFSPOILERS. All spelled out. No spaces, obviously. Hall of Spoilers.
You can't forget that, y'all. That's where you're sitting right now listening to this video. The Hall of Spoilers, baby.
Yeah. So
it's the home of the Spectacular Spoiler League. Come on, man.
If you see a whole bunch of purple on that icon, you're in the right place. Hall of Spoilers. And, of course, you can follow Hazy at HazyRome and myself at DeepBoyce. We're still trying to get to 100 YouTube subscribers so we can get that vanity link and start pimping it out there. But you're going to have to just search Spectacular Spoiler League. And, I mean, if you're already here, then you found it. So hit that subscribe button and hit that that bell icon so you get notifications every time we drop a video, just in case.
And for those of you who've already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys so much for your support, because we've seen the likes, we've seen the comments. You guys have treated us with, the utmost respect, and it's dope having conversations with you guys. So we look forward to many more, guys. But that being said, me and Boyce and you guys are getting out the Hall of Spoilers. You can come back into Hall of Spoilers if you want to check more videos, because we always here in a sense. But we'll catch you guys later. May the freaking Force be with you guys, so that we can get to Christmas a lot sooner and check out The Last Jedi.
Peace.
We getting out of here, y'all.
Peace.